Welcome home, y'all. This is SoloPod Day. I'm your host, Angela Rye from Native Land Pod. And I am elated to be sharing space today with someone who is like a little brother to me. He is doing fantastic work that I will get to in just a moment. I want to tell you that we are in a unique time in our nation's history, and so much of what we have considered normal for some time, considering issues of racial justice. All of these things are now, looked upon poorly. And in an era like that, it is important to find the folks among us who will say, not on my watch, I'm going to hold the line. I'm going to ensure that people understand our history. They understand what it takes for us to be able to survive in an era where Black people are losing their jobs left and right. That good government job that was so safe for so long, the very jobs that many of our uncles and aunts and parents told us to go get are no longer safe in the federal government and in some ways on the state level. And so, what we have to do in these moments is to look at data. There was a point where you could go to like the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is an official federal government entity, but now Donald Trump has essentially gutted the Bureau of Labor Statistics. When was the last time y'all heard about unemployment rates? Right? So a person who has to provide and build out a narrative that things are so good cannot stand to stare data in the face. So as y'all are going to the runs because you can't even eat your lettuce right now, and as people who you love are fighting for their very lives, and as now RFK says that maybe kids should actually get a measles vaccination, it is important for us to cling steadfast to truth. And that is why it is so important to me to bring to the stage today Dr. Wes Bellamy, who is the executive director of the John Mercer Langston Institute for African American Political Leadership. And he is also my brother, and he's also, why are you not a professor? Associate professor, we need to talk about that, of political science and public administration at Virginia State University. I want to know, that's my first question, and then I'm going to talk about the report. He has a report, y'all, though, called The Economic State of Black Men and Boys in the United States. But why are you not a professor? Who I got to write?
I
What
am a
petition do I got
professor.
to start?
That's just the
Why I
title.
say associate professor?
You have assistant professor, associate professor, tenure, all that. Like it's all in just the title.
Why are you not tenured?
I chose not to be tenured. I'm full professor. I got full professorship. I
I
want to be
want
able
you
to
to
have
be tenured.
flexibility. Nah, I want to be able to go when I need to go, but I don't plan on going nowhere anytime soon. Let me be clear. I
Yeah,
love
you
Virginia
better
State.
be
I'm here on
careful,
campus
Lord.
right
Let's get into this report because
now.
this boy is
Let's
on
do
here talking big
it.
trash. Let's go. Okay, so Wes is an associate professor for his freedom, but that's just for the freedom and liberation of Black people. He is not going anywhere. He loves the students at Virginia State University. I've seen it firsthand. I don't even have my earrings on. That is so rude. Anyway, okay, so the economic state of Black men and boys in the United States. The reason why I appreciate this report right now is we've spent a lot of time, Wes, talking about how Black women have been impacted by this administration.
Mm-hmm.
You know firsthand that even in the last election cycle in 24, there was a lot of discussion about Black men feeling unseen, unheard by every political party and everything in between. Talk about why a report like this was so important in this hour right now.
Well, exactly what you said. I mean, we were able to conduct nearly 10,000 conversations, study points, engagement with Black men across the country. One of the things that was consistent, brothers feeling as if they've been left out, brothers feeling as if no one cares about what they have to say and whatnot, and really just a act of despair. And what we really wanted to do with this report was show that while it is indeed bleak, it's important for us to know the data, for us to be able to then make informed decisions based on the data, not innuendo, not what I think, not maybe what I heard, but the facts are the facts. And when we look at, again, like small things, 600, not small thing, but when you have 650,000 Black men who are unemployed, became unemployed between quarter one in 2025 and quarter one of 2026, and that number, yeah, is nearly a million persons for Black women. 650,000 Black men, that's nothing small, or that's nothing for us to laugh about or pretend as if it's not a major thing. When you look at in the month of April of 2026, Black male unemployment rate was at nearly 7.4%. damn near astronomical numbers. And it came down a little bit to June, and we're at 6.6%, but that's still crazy. And it's the highest unemployment rate of any of the four major subgroups. So, Black men are really in a state of despair. And it's important for us to talk about it so that, again, we can find tangible solutions based on strategy from the data, not, again, things that we think need to happen, but allow the data to allow us to make data informed decisions.
Let me ask you this too. So, one thing that struck me looking at this report is you talk about the economic state of Black men and boys.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, when we talk about Black economic power, it is narrowly through the lens of our buying power. So, people are always like,
Hmm.
oh, we're over $2.1 trillion now in our
Trillion dollars.
buying
Yeah.
power, right? But
Yeah.
why is it with other communities, they don't talk about their economic power and how much they're willing to spend? What do you hope that by releasing this report, we can do in shifting that narrative as well?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. One, that we're not regulated solely to what we can do for others, i.e., buying. We have to look at the educational aspect and where we are. I mean, 17% of African Americans as a whole, that's both men and women included, are only reading at a 17% reading proficiency rate in the fourth grade. That means that we got a lot of work to do. When, again, you look at Black males at HBCUs enrolled in colleges, we're only 26% of the enrollment share. At PWIs, we're only hovering around 28 to 29% of the enrollment share. So again, like we want to shift the conversation solely from where we are economically to also what we're looking at from a housing perspective, from an educational perspective, from a health perspective. But we know all of those things are impacted, or excuse me, your economics are impacted by all of those other items. So if you can't get a job, you obviously aren't going to have any money. If you can't read, then that's going to limit you in terms of your buying power. That's going to limit you in terms of the wealth that you're able to create. If you don't have access to housing, then that too is going to impact your economics. So we use through this report kind of economics as the hook, but we talk about a wide variety of other factors that are playing the role in Black men feeling as if they're being forgotten. But all is not lost, and I know we'll get to the solutions and some of the priorities, if you will. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and we just have to continue to put our boots on the ground and get to work.
Given your background in political science, why is it important to bring data into conversations around policy? I'm thinking in particular, you're in a very interesting state, one that people would say it flipped blue. I was familiar with Abigail Spanberger's politics before she
Where are
ran
you?
for governor. Yeah, she worked.
Okay.
She was in the House, always voting on play bills that she shouldn't. But I guess my question would be, what would your highest hope be when you think about how the governor and her administration could utilize this data? What's your highest hope for, local governments? Some of our friends who sit with the African American Mayors Association, as a former elected official yourself, how do you want to
Mhm.
see this data used to move the needle for Black men and boys?
So two things specifically. I want every state to adopt a commission for African American boys and young men, and then allow them to, and we can work with them in any capacity in which we need. We got a whole research team. We all need to do a state by state of economic for Black men and boys in each state, and again, and recognize that there is a dire need across all 50 states. So that's the first thing. We want an African American commission for Black boys and men, or excuse me, a commission for Black boys and men in all 50 states. And then secondly, on a local level, and this can also play into the state level, but on a local level, we want dedicated strategies on the K-12 level. So that means reading interventionists. And some folks will say, well, hey, we're already doing these things. Title I schools receive federal dollars. There are reading interventionists in each school. We're trying to do the best job that we can. We need more people. Well, that's where the state comes in terms of providing additional resources so that we can, again can have dedicated strategies to Black boys and men. So that's on the K-12 level. Early elementary, want to see, again, more reading interventionists for Black boys. From a local municipality level, we would like to see a pathways program be developed in areas in which there are industry. Not every municipality has access to a plumbing and trade school, or some kind of workforce development that are a carpentry school or something of that nature. But there are other trades in which can be taught. So that means that can we develop and have a municipality pay for young men, Black men specifically, to go to barber school? Can we have them pay to get customer service trades, things of that nature, like certificates rather, and things of that nature. So we want to see a dedicated workforce plan being implemented in each municipality. And then when we look at from an institutional level, we would like to see our community colleges have a dedicated strategy for Black men and boys. Our state institutions, whether you're PWI or HBCU, have a dedicated strategy for Black men and boys. And our private institutions have a dedicated strategy for Black men and boys. Again, we want this data to allow these institutions, whether that's a college, community college, trade school, local government, state government, because they're all institutions as a whole. We want the data to allow these institutions to make informed decisions specific for their population. Where I live, and I'll stop with this, but where I live in Charlottesville, Virginia, nearly 27% of our population lives below the poverty line. We have some data that has been recently released that says 18% of Black men and boys who live in Charlottesville and in Albemarle County, for that matter, are homeless. So that means like homeless can be identified as, bruh, you sleeping on the couch of your homeboy, or just being candid, you going from chick to chick, you kicking it with this one, you kicking it with that one, because you can't go back to your mom house. And in many ways, we identify all of that as homelessness. And brothers, we trying to get you mentally right. We're trying to get you emotionally right. And then also we want to get you fiscally right so that you can take care of yourself and your family in the future, and then subsequently give back to our community. So that's why, like, again, this data, there's a ton of information in it, but we're hoping that individuals read the report and not just take this as a woe is me kind of thing, but let's use it to go and make informed decisions.
I think that's kind of this other part of this, like around data right now. I talked about it in this intro too. We have a president that runs from it instead of dealing with what it actually says. I don't know if you all, and I didn't get to see this in the report, but I don't know if you all have anything on this, but there has been this heightened fascination with trade school for young Black men.
Yeah.
You are a sitting college professor, so I know you might have a slight bias here. We'll acknowledge the bias, sitting there with the bow tie on. He's an elected official, very well. He's Dr. Wes Bellamy. He's
I'm
educated.
usually not even dressed like this. You caught me
Yeah,
on a good day.
it's all right. But the point is, Wes, do you think that, like, where do you think that's coming from? Pushing young men to trade school? Is it true that there are not enough opportunities for folks who are attaining college degrees? Like, what is the push to trade school, and is there data on that you've seen?
So what we saw was that there wasn't conclusive data that we felt comfortable putting it in the report stating that Black men and boys were going to trade school in large droves. There also was a different set of barriers as people were trying to push these young men into trade schools that were not necessarily taken into account. Some of the things that we found in preliminary reports were this. One, when brothers go to trade school, there's an associated cost with entering into the school if there isn't a pathway program sponsored by some entity. So you're going to have to pay to go to the trade school. The trade schools usually do not pay our young men while they're in the school. So that means that you're going to have another source of income to sustain yourself. What we've also noticed is that after the trade school, it doesn't guarantee you a job. In some instances, there have been 3 months, as long as 6 to 9 months, maybe even a year before, after obtaining the trade, you actually get a job. So you have to take all of that into account when we're saying, hey, you go and get the certificate, or you just go to trade school, what some people may think is an expedited route. That doesn't always lead to the immediate transfer of wealth or development of wealth that some people think that you're going to get. Now, another aspect of this is some folks were saying, I've seen in multiple comments from people who've shared the report, they'll say things like, well, trade school still costs significantly less than a 4-year college. And I would agree with that. There's no denying that in most instances. However, what you can't quantify by going to college is the bachelor degree that many institutions, and I'm talking about workplace institutions, are requiring for individuals to advance in terms of upper management or supervisory roles. That's still a tool that individuals who are running these systems are using to prohibit Black men and boys specifically from advancing within their career. The data was clear in that regard, and that's indicated within the report. These systems, if you will, don't have barriers, or excuse me, brothers don't have barriers from these systems to prohibit them from, again, advancing And or we saw very clearly that the highest opportunity for you to gain wealth as a black man and boy in this country is still for you to go and get a 4-year degree. Yes, I am biased as a college professor, but I started a pipelines to pathway program in Charlottesville when I was in office. That
Mhm.
program is still in existence today. I refer young men to it all the time. That doesn't mean that I'm going to tell them that you're going to make more money going into that pathway to pipeline program than you are coming to school. You may come out with more debt, but again, we see over time, and the data is clear, you make exponentially more money going to school, going to college, than you do simply getting a trade. You ask the question, where do I think that that's coming from? I honestly think that it's a design being pushed by podcast bros, by individuals who are really just trying to lead us astray. And those brothers are both black and white, who are trying to tell us to go and do something that the data isn't showing yields the returns that many are looking for. Yeah, it may work for a small, minute number, but that doesn't mean that it's going to work for everybody. And our best bet is still going and get a 4-year degree and then working your way up the ladder, if you will.
Talk to me about the mental health impacts of some of the data you've seen. We have like witnessed, I think we have know people in our families, in our communities who are struggling with suicide attempts or suicidal thoughts, depression,
Yeah.
young men finally being able to speak their, and boys speaking their minds about everything that the world is putting on them and how heavy the weight of that is. Talk
Mm-hmm.
about, kind of what you anticipate seeing from being. Here's the data that says if all of these things are happening, they are probably feeling the pressure of life. How are you
Yeah.
seeing that be made manifest in some of the conversations y'all have for this report?
Well, the fastest, I don't even want to say the fastest, but the group of persons with the highest number of suicide attempts over the last 4 years have been African American males. For some persons, that's a very surprising number. That's a very surprising statistic, rather, but it just is what it is, what the data shows. Um, that's exasperated when you don't have any money. Those thoughts of
Yeah.
suicide are exasperated when you also feel as if that you're behind, is exasperated when you feel as if there's no one who truly cares or understands what you're going through. It's easier for you to fall into a silo with other individuals, or sit in a silo with other individuals who identify with feeling lonely, than it is to work with persons who are trying to get out of that mood because they are trying to climb the ladder, if you will. What we've seen very clearly is that, again, black men and boys are not necessarily going to college the same rate in which they were. They have a lower educational proficiency in which they've done before. Economically, they're only making 77 cents for every dollar that white men are making. And from a household perspective, black men are leading their households in terms of being the head of household, being the breadwinners, if you will. That number is decreasing exponentially year by year. The data is very clear in that. One plus one plus one plus one equals four. And we can pretty much understand and draw conclusions that when brothers feel checked out, when brothers feel as if they're left alone, when brothers feel as if this life just isn't worth living anymore, they are making decisions to take themselves away from here at a much higher rate. We are working diligently to encourage brothers not to do so. We just had a Black Male Leadership Institute on Thursday. We had 50 young men and boys between the ages of 14 and 24 all participate in that. I work with several groups, 100 Black Men, Kappa Alpha Psi, Urban League, so on and so forth, who are also trying to implement groups for support groups for young men. But again, we need these numbers so that we can develop informed strategies. I'm tired of us just throwing stuff at the wall based off of what we think is happening. Now we have the data, and now we can create a plan.
Okay, so you brought up Kappa, you a Kappa. You brought up 100 black men, you were in the 100 black men. You also
Urban
brought up
League.
Urban League. And I think that this is a good opportunity, Wes, because we talked last week about the importance of joining and supporting our organizations. Can you
Mhm.
talk about why that also is important for young black men who are trying to find their way?
Yeah.
I tell this story all the time about my godson was getting in trouble at school. He was 6, And we went up there. You know, my cousin was like, "You need to come because you're the lawyer. You scary. Like, so come on." So I went up there and we talked to them. And at the end of the meeting, Wes, I was walking out and I was like, "Well, we gonna call the NAAC," and I was like, "Oh, I gotta pay my dues." You know,
Ah,
so it's like it's one of those moments where you're
yeah,
like the very organization that sometimes, you know, we'll say, well, what are they doing? Well, I don't even understand them. Well, that's old. Well, like, and it's not just NAA. I've said it about the National Bar. I got back involved in the National Bar. I'm now a lifetime member of National Bar last year. I had never paid dues to NCNW. I love Siobhan. I was like, I'm supporting that. Like, I'm in all of them now. But
yeah.
it took crisis. It takes us crisis. Why would you, if you were doing a PSA to these young men, like, hey, I want to make sure that y'all are tapped in, plugged in. Why are these community organizations so important to us culturally, especially in such a difficult time?
I think that just as you said, when we're in trouble, those are the groups that we often look to rally support for us.
Yep.
But I think it's bigger than that. Not necessarily just or solely from a historical lens, because we know the work in which they've done in yesteryear and continue to do now. But I think that for Black men specifically, you need a peer group of
Mm.
individuals who are moving in a direction that's based around community empowerment. Now, one of the issues is that for younger Black men, we don't find our peers too often in these organizations. These organizations often have older brothers, which makes it a little bit harder for younger men to find their voice, for them to find connectivity, for them to find relatability. And often when that happens, you kind of check out. So it's a two-edged sword, if you will. I think that there's an obligation, an absolute obligation and responsibility for us to join these organizations. And I think it's incumbent on those organizations to be more strategic in terms of how they make younger brothers feel included. I'm 39. I'm not a young spring chicken anymore. I remember you saying to us in some time back, like, we always say the young people, but y'all, we not the young people anymore.
We is not young.
You said that, and when you said it, I was like, dang. I mean, like, you're right. I serve on
Although
the
you
national.
still would be in the young adult ministry at church. You still
Yeah,
would be in the young adult
I would
ministry
still
at
be, because
church.
I ain't 40 yet. Okay, I'll take it.
I think
But
even when you 40, like it feels like that bar is just kind of
it's
sliding
just
at
down
church. It's
sliding
just
up,
like,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
like until we die, y'all in the young adult ministry.
they
Anyway, go
keeping it.
ahead.
They keeping it until they gone. But I mean, I
Yeah.
mean, in all seriousness, like, we talk about this in the 100 Black Men all the time. We've developed an emerging 100, which we have a few chapters across the country. But younger brothers often feel like they don't have peer circles that can help them, like, improve their quality of life and not just go turn up. Like, I don't want to talk to you about 2K. I don't want to talk to you about, like, just going out and let's go get some chicks and let's go do A, B, and C. Like, nah, there's real life that we also have to be working on, and we need to be talking about development as manhood. And I think these organizations can play a role in that. They should be playing a role in that. Many of them are trying to play a role in that, but we got to be able to find the bridge in many regards. And I just don't think that that's happening at the speed in which some of us want to. And that could be a technological divide, that could be just a cultural divide or intergenerational divide. But I would say that these kind of divides, if you will, have been in existence within our community forever. It hasn't stopped the generations before us, and it damn sure shouldn't stop us. So let's not make excuses. Let's get to work.
Unstoppable. So we're going to make sure that we put in our show notes the link to the report. Wes, what do you want people who are listening to you talking about this today? What do you want their main takeaway to be, and what is like a call to action for them? We normally end our shows with calls to action.
So, three things. One, we have in the report, there are three instances specifically that we point out, or three institutions that we point out who we believe are doing really good work. In Baltimore, Maryland, shout out to Mayor Scott. They have a pathway and pipeways program in which they are connecting young men directly with jobs after they go and get a certificate in trades. I firmly believe, and I think the data will show when it comes out. They don't have direct conclusions yet because it's still relatively new. But I think that has a strong correlation in the decrease in violence, gun violence specifically in Baltimore. Brothers getting
Well, that's
jobs,
one trade program that's working in.
for sure, for sure. Again,
Okay.
I think that brothers getting jobs, brothers can take care of themselves. Brothers have methods to de-escalate when situations rise up, and then that helps decrease violence. Alabama A&M and both Morgan State University
Mm.
have seen increases in Black male enrollment and retention. It's one thing to have brothers come and join or come and join your school or enroll in your institution. It's another thing to retain them. Those numbers are also translating to higher graduation rates, specifically for Black men. So all hope isn't lost. And I know those are two HBCUs, but we have PWIs who we also have to demand to do the same thing. The other HBCUs, again, across the country, are also demanding to do the same thing. So when you ask me what's the call to action, I think, again, it's encouraging your municipality. So we got to show up to city council, school board meetings, and so forth to develop dedicated strategies for Black men and boys. But then also collectively, brothers, just because it's bleak right now doesn't mean it will not, the sun won't shine later. We love you. We believe in you. And there's much more to life than what you think is in front of you right now. Let's go out and get to work. Let's go out and be the best versions of ourselves. And next year in 2027, when we publish the second edition of this report, I fully anticipate the numbers being much better than they are today because we all going to work at it.
I love it. I love it. Thank you very much, Dr. Wes Bellamy, who is a professor for liberation. That is what associate professor means. But no, seriously, I'm really grateful for the work you do. And Wes, it is it's always such a dope thing to see you interact with your students because it is very clear that you make an impact on all of your students. But I also deeply appreciate the love you have for our young men because it is so necessary in this moment. So I am very proud of you. And look forward to
Angela don't tell nobody she's proud of them, y'all. So you know what I'm saying?
Not
she
true.
a tough cookie.
Apparently,
she tells me she's proud of me all the time.
Ended this interview without him on it. But no, I am very proud of Dr. Wes Bellamy, and you're gonna let us know what else we can do to make sure. So, are you telling Abigail you want this commission? Did you already tell her?
So the commission for men and boys is up in Virginia. Just announced it last week. Yes.
Oh, I didn't hear you say that. Did you say that?
Well, not for Black men and boys. It's for men and boys. But we have had conversations. Her administration and I literally just spoke yesterday. We had a very fruitful conversation. There's a conference and seminar that we're going to be doing in September, working together on that. So October rather, that working on that together. So we got some positive steps that we're taking here in Virginia, and hoping it'll be a model for everyone else.
Well, maybe we need to come do Native Land Pod in Virginia and have Abigail on to answer why there's not a commission for Black men and boys yet. I'm happy to ask the question. Abigail, we got questions because we could be doing things a little bit differently here, sis. We got to keep these people motivated to vote. They don't see if you're doing something different, they're going to have a problem now. So come on. Anyway, that is charged to me, not to Dr. Wes Bellamy, but I meant what I said. We look forward to fellowshipping with you in Virginia, Wes, and definitely talking to the Spanberger administration about what's good. Okay? All right, we'll see you soon, and we'll drop the link in the show notes. Bye-bye. Okay, y'all, this has been an incredible show. I think it's so important for us to understand, really what's at stake for our kids, for our young people. Things are tough. Our kids are coming up disappearing. They ended up with sentences that are far too long. Getting killed on, graduation night by police officers. Like, we really got to make some changes. So I applaud this work, and I especially applaud the idea of developing a village. I'm going to tell y'all often, my point of privilege growing up the way that I did is I grew up with a true village of Black folks, chosen family and actually blood related. And it's just shaped my worldview. It determined what I believe I was capable of. It helped to establish confidence in me. I want every child, particularly every Black child, to have that. So whatever we can do to make that happen, I know that Dr. Wes Bellamy will join me in that fight. And I know so many of you all who are watching and listening at home or wherever you may be will do that as well. We always in this show and begin the show with welcome home. And the importance of that is we want to have a sacred space for us all. We deserve that. We have earned it. That is our pathway to liberation. And so with that, welcome home, y'all.
Nobody knows the troubles I've seen,